Hi everybody, it's Brad with Big Family Homestead, and in this edition of the Homestead Nation, I'm chatting it up again with Tommy, the Carolina Prepper, and we are talking about money, more stuff on money. You guys sent in a lot of questions, and that's great, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of different ways to prepare in case of an economic problem, what money is, all kinds of different interesting things, ways to hedge against calamity. But before we get into this conversation, I wanted to go ahead, I need to ask you something, and I really would greatly appreciate a comment on the bottom, and that is this. How do you guys watch these videos? Since they are so long, what I mean by that is, since they're so long, do you sit and you literally watch it, or do you minimize the screen and listen to the audio? We're trying to do a better job at making sure that you have this content in a way that you want to receive it. And we don't want to spend a ton of time and effort doing something that you're not even caring about. So let us know how you watch these videos or listen to the videos or however it is that you consume the media. Please let us know that. It would greatly help us out. And to that note, to that point rather, here's the thing. We are working through some technical issues. We're new to the whole world of Skype, and we're finding out all kinds of stuff about bandwidth on the internet, and sometimes audio might drop out, or all of a sudden we may look like we're in a bad kung fu film because our mouth is not lined up with the audio and the video. And so understand that we do know that these things are happening, and we decided that it would be a better idea to go ahead and give you the content even with the little blippy errors while we're working through those errors than not give you the content at all. So please understand we are working through these technical issues, and actually we're going to be releasing a video on Friday with Dirt Patch Heaven, and great content, but her audio dropped out once in a while. So you're going to see a little bit of that towards the end of this video, but we felt like the content was there, so we wanted to share that with you. Now, all that to say, please don't forget to like and subscribe, share the video. It really does help us out. And I am Brad with Big Family Homestead. You enjoy this version or edition of the Homestead Nation.
Howdy do, everybody. I'm Brad, and this is another edition of the Homestead Nation. We are here with Tommy, the Carolina Prepper. How you doing, Rockstar?
What's happening, my man?
Oh, my friend, I'm just living the dream. I am so excited to have you back. We are going to be talking money. Are you ready? Are you prepared?
I'll do my best.
Oh, man. All right, so everybody, if you don't know, Tommy's background is in finance. He's done all kinds of different things for all kinds of different people, and he knows how far the rabbit hole goes. He's been sending me all kinds of links, and my brain has been exploding with all this information, zeitgeist kind of stuff, and what money really is and what it used to be and what is tangible money. And so I want to really just talk about that, because the first big oh my gosh, we're in real serious trouble moment in terms of our financial system for me was when I realized that the dollar is no longer actual money. So would you talk a few minutes on what it is to actually, what is money? What is it really?
Well, that's a great question. So I guess throughout millennia, money has been gold and silver, right? So money has to have several characteristics, and I actually took the time to write some of these things down, because if I didn't, I was going to screw it all up. And I went right on the Federal Reserve website to get some of this information. So it's all got to be accurate and true, right? Mm-hmm. What is money? Money's a store of value, right? It's a unit of account, and it's a medium of exchange. A lot of people look back throughout history and they think of barter, and they think when the system breaks down, there's going to be a bartering opportunity. But money really has served an awesome purpose over the years. For instance, if you're a farmer, let's say you're a chicken farmer, you're raising chickens for eggs, and you have eggs that you need to sell, and you need a pair of shoes. So you go to the local shoemaker and you say, hey, I'll give you X amount of eggs for a new pair of shoes, and the shoemaker says, but I don't need eggs. You're in trouble, right? That barter's not going to work. So there's going to be a whole lot of other steps, because you're going to have to find other people to fill that void until you get something that the shoemaker wants.
Something universal.
What's that?
Something universal.
Yeah. Money came into existence because you needed something universal that could be exchanged. That's a store of value and a future promise of wealth and that sort of thing. So there's several things that determines what makes money or what money is. First off, it has to be durable, has to be portable, has to be divisible, has to be uniform, or fungible is another word they use for it. And I'll give you the actual textbook definition of fungible in a second. It has to have limited supply, which we know our dollars as a limitless supply. And it has to have universal acceptability, right? Other people have to be able to accept that as payment for whatever goods or services you're exchanging with them. In the actual definition for fungible is being of such nature or kind as to be freely exchangeable or replaceable in whole or in part for another of like nature or kind. So 1 ounce of gold, a gold eagle is the same as another gold eagle, right? As long as they're both the same weight, 1 troy ounce, it's the same as any other gold eagle out there. If you were to use a cow as money, not all cows are equal, right? I mean, there's different ages, different poundage, so you can't really use a cow as money or a chicken as money. You can certainly barter it, but it's going to be a different value depending on the size, the age, so on and so forth. So that's why money came into effect. Somewhere along the line, money started out with miners. People would dig up gold or silver out of the ground, and they'd bring it to the goldsmiths, and they'd put it on deposit there, and in exchange for that, they were given a receipt for this gold. So while this goldsmith was minting the money, the miner needed to go back out and dig up more raw material. So the miner found out that he could use that receipt in exchange for more picks and more shovels and that sort of thing. And sooner or later, all these receipts got into circulation, and then the goldsmith found out that, hey, I don't have a whole lot of people coming back and asking for their gold at any one time, so I can just write a bunch more receipts than gold that I have in my vault. I can write a bunch. So, that was the beginning of the bankster revolution. They found out how they can fleece the system and write a bunch of paper receipts for gold that they didn't have in their vault. And boy, how things, as much as they change, they stay the same, right? I mean, we're in the same system today. So those are kind of, what is money? I think people in today's society have been snowed into thinking the paper they have in their wallet or the digits in their bank account is money, but it truly doesn't. It isn't real money when you think about it, because it doesn't actually fulfill all the things that the Federal Reserve said that it is.
Well, and now listening to some of the different characteristics that you have to be considered real money, the idea of going to a completely even cashless, paperless system is even more terrifying, because now what is it? It's no longer do we even have a physical anything, even a currency note, which is what really just debt anyway. Right. But now I don't even have that. So what have you got? All you've got is their word that it's worth something.
Right. Well, and of course, that's where they want to get to, right? This guy, Aaron Russo, I don't know if you've ever heard of Aaron Russo, but Hollywood filmmaker, he got close to one of the Rockefeller guys, and according to Aaron Russo, who's now deceased, he said that, the Rockefellers' plan was to have everybody implanted with a chip, and if they said or did something that the elite didn't like, they just turn off your chip. So all your money is going to be on your chip, and if you do something that we don't like, or if you don't do something that we tell you to do, we're just going to turn off the chip. That scares the heck out of me. But that's where it's going. And really, people have been talking about this cashless society for decades or centuries or longer. In fact, it's in the Bible, and you're more of an expert on that than I can ever claim to be. The mark of the beast and all that. But really, I mean, we're in a phase right now where it's openly being discussed, and it's in hyper mode where they're trying to get us to that point.
Well, it is interesting because I've also heard of, the whole secular humanist kind of push towards Ray Kurzweil's whole thing, where we will meld with machines as technology gets to the point where humans can't keep up. That's their whole idea that supposedly that you will not be able to compete. The computer can think so much faster than you, so without its help embedded into you, then you will not even be able to communicate. You won't even be able, and they say that it'll get to the point where the standouts, the people like myself who are not going to adopt this sort of system, will not implement those technologies into their bodies. There'll be such a gap between the people who have them that we won't even be able to speak the same language. We won't even understand each other at a point. And at some point, it's like the chip you're talking about, that they'll just no more allow you to have stuff. The end.
Yeah, it's scary when you think about it. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see these things in our lifetime, if not our lifetime, definitely our kids' lifetimes. The things they are changing, and I'm just not sure. And, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm not sure what we can do other than starve the beast. Try not to participate, do not comply, try to stay out of the system as much as possible. And if enough of us do that, we might be able to put the brakes on this. But voting's out the window. I just don't know how to stop it. Seems like the trains are rolling in that direction.
Let me ask you this. What would be some alternative ideas that you might have in terms of, since there's not a whole lot of faith in the paper dollar, what would I look at as something that I might want to have as a future money, or at least has as many of those criteria as possible? Stuff like, seeds, solar panels. What do you think would have value that I could maybe store up now that is going to be movable, tangible, has an equal, as many of those criteria as possible? What are your ideas?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on what society is going to look like after this collapse. And nobody knows for sure, and anyone who says they do, I think, is just not being 100% honest. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but so I'm diversifying, right? I mean, in any investment, you got to diversify. I like metals, but certainly people make the argument, well, you can't eat metal. I get that. So, beans, bullets, Band-Aids. I talk about lead bullion. I mean,
bologna.
Say again?
And bologna.
And bologna. Yeah, but bologna doesn't keep.
It's a bologna tree. Yeah, that's why you plant a bologna tree.
Hey, bologna has a first name. Let's start calling it by that.
I agree. Sorry.
So lead bullion.
Yeah.
Let's face it, bullets, ammunition has been going up in value. And do I see it going straight up forever? Of course not. But certainly it seems like the powers that be are trying to disarm the population. And, our federal government and its agencies are buying up millions and millions and millions of rounds of ammunition, making it more difficult to acquire and driving the price higher. Again, I don't know that that's going to happen forever, go straight up, but I do believe over time these things are going to continue to get more expensive. So you can certainly buy ammunition when it's on sale, when it's available, and you can stop.
When can you get it? I've at the Walmart store that we shop at for the last 8 months, I've gone in there almost every 3 or 4 days, and they don't ever have any 22s. No, never.
Yeah. I found some there not too long ago, but I haven't had a whole lot of luck there. But there's certainly sources online. The problem with it is that 22 ammunition now is 10 cents a round.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It is. So again, you try to get it when it's on sale, and there are some sales out there. But even on sale, you're paying 5-6 cents a round in a lot of cases. So, but it should be a decent store of value. And certainly, if we're at a point where you have to barter, if you read any of these post-apocalyptic books or watched any of the movies, ammunition is in high demand and definitely has a premium attached to it. So ammunition would be one thing. You and I discussed offline, and I wished I could have found this video, but it was an excerpt.
I was just going to ask you about this. I know exactly where you're going.
All right.
The lighters?
Yep.
It
was an excerpt from a book, I believe, and I think it was the Bosnian-Croatian War back in the 90s that President Clinton was involved with, bombing the Serbs. Anyway, I was a young guy, and I don't know a whole lot about what happened back then. But this young, he was a young, I believe he was Bosnian. He survived that whole war-torn experience where he was in a city environment, and an army surrounded his city and basically cut them off. They were shelling the city. And cut them off so they couldn't get any supplies in or out of their city. And it went on like this for years. I think it was 2 or 3 years they were living under these conditions. So they burned all the furniture in their house. In any of the neighboring houses or apartments that weren't occupied, or the people that lived there passed away, they went over and took their furniture and burned it all because they were freezing to death. And he described some of the things that were worth something, that had value. Bic lighters, or any lighter, had a tremendous value. In fact, I think he said that he'd rather have 100 Bic lighters than 100 ounces of gold. It's just worth more in that environment. He liked them, and they had value because they were easily transportable. You could hide them, and everybody wanted and needed them. So, was that money? Probably in that environment, a Bic lighter was money.
Yeah.
And they talked about how there was a market, several blocks over, but you wouldn't want to go out there during the day necessarily, because there were snipers that would shoot you and take whatever you had. They'd sit up on the rooftops, and they'd have guys down below, and they'd shoot people in the streets, and then the guys down below would go out and rob them. So I don't know if that's what our environment's going to look like, but my brain goes in that direction and think of, roving hordes of people, Mad Max, it's scary. So in that environment, Bic lighters meant something. Liquor. People drank a lot. People are going to want to escape reality. So liquor could have a store of value, not to mention the antiseptic qualities. If you get a cut, a scrape, a wound, what have you, you pour some liquor in there, or you tip a little back, take the edge off if you're in pain. So liquor had a lot of value. And the guy in their little neighborhood that knew how to make biodiesel, they said that he never went hungry. Everybody knew him. Everybody liked him. And people would bring him all kinds of supplies in exchange for the biodiesel, because that was the only fuel these people had. So, these are skills that if we don't have them, that sounds like a skill that might be in high demand, being able to make your own biodiesel fuel.
Well, let me ask you this, and nobody has a crystal ball, obviously, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone if this is something that's going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now, however long they can kick the financial can down the road. But if you had to make a guess, knowing the markets, you watch the markets, this is what you do. Recently, I've been watching on television that Ron Paul has come out and said, hey, the markets are in serious trouble. You're being lied to. And everybody just looks at him like crazy old Ron. But I've never really heard much of his stuff that I disagreed with if you actually get past all the shrill media voices trying to tell you he's crazy. When you actually listen to it, I'm going, sounds okay to me. But now, if you were thinking outside the box, are you thinking year, 5 years?
As far as the collapse?
Some kind of financial big-time mumbo-jumbo.
It's a great question. I think the collapse happened, or at least the first leg of the collapse happened in 2008, and this has all been smoke and mirrors ever since. I am surprised every day that I get up that the next shoe hasn't dropped yet and the balloon hasn't gone up. I'm surprised. I'm actually, because I'm so far positioned in the camp of things falling apart, I actually get a little disappointed when I get up and I go, gee, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, crap, the apocalypse, man. When's my birthday coming? Mama.
I know it sounds crazy, right? But I'm just flabbergasted at the fact that it hasn't happened yet. So I've been wrong. Really, I've been yelling for 3 years now that this was going to happen. I remember when the Dow crossed 10,000, I thought, we're going to have an immediate retracement. We're going to go back down and see, 6,000 in the Dow again. It hasn't happened because the people that control the system have a limitless supply of cash.
Yeah, but cash is not worth anything if they say it, unless they say it is, right?
Well, not necessarily. And anytime somebody says cash isn't worth anything, I ask them to open up their wallet and give me everything in it because it's not worth anything to them. And you see how quickly they change their tune. So right now, our dollar is accepted as exchange for payment from people all around the world. And it's still the global reserve currency. So it is worth something, even though it doesn't have any intrinsic value. It's still accepted as payment for goods and services all around the world. You can't take an ounce of silver anywhere and exchange that for anything other than maybe at a pawn shop or a coin dealer or somebody else that is actively looking to buy or sell that coin. But I can take my dollar and go into any store and still exchange it for something at the counter. So I'm not one of those guys that says it's not worth anything, but I am one of those guys that sees the writing on the wall. And I don't know if it's going to be a year or 3 years or 5 years. I'm certainly on the camp that It's going to be sooner rather than later. So much so that I think it should have happened already, and or it did. Just the world hasn't woken up to it yet.
Well, let me ask you this. Would there be some indicator of a market move or something on a financial level that would be an indicator that you would go, oh my gosh, this is really this is a point of no return?
Yeah. Again, I see those things all the time. When Germany asked for their gold back a couple of years ago from the vaults that they've been paying the people in New York to hold on to it since post-World War II, and those people turned around and said, yeah, it's going to take us 7 years to give you your money back. That to me was a moment where the whole world should have woke up and said, hold on a second. Could you imagine going to your bank tomorrow and saying, hey, that $1,000 I have on deposit in your bank, I want it back. And they say, we'll give it back to you, but we'll give you a little bit each year for the next 7 years.
I'll tell you what, that would never happen because they shouldn't really have a hard time finding $140. They really shouldn't.
It's all relative, man. It's all relative. Well, hey, you figure out any amount of money. You go in there for $100, they tell you it's going to take you 7 years to get it back. Well, wait a second. I deposited this money. You're supposed to give it back to me. That's the contract.
Well, now, I'm noticing recently more and more over the last few years that the amount of money you're allowed to take out of an ATM or your bank at any one time seems to keep coming down. And you have to have paperwork to take out like a sum of money that's over $1,000. What is this kind of garbage?
No, it's crazy. I mean, I've been in situations where I go to withdraw a sum of cash and I get 50 questions thrown at me. Oh, what are you doing with this money? And God forbid you tell them it's none of their business. They'll just keep hammering you. I found the best way to get around that is you tell them you're buying a classic car or you're buying something, shut them up and move on. Even though it is none of their business. But they're making it harder and harder. It's a soft form of capital controls, I think. They're just making it difficult. They make it real easy for you to give them their money and real difficult to take it out. So there's things that are going on in the banking system that scare the heck out of me. And a lot of it is derived from these executive orders that were signed by Obama, but he's not the first, nor will he be the last president that signs these executive orders and that gives them power to do things. But basically, when you deposit money into a bank, you become a creditor of that bank now, and you're probably, 10 or 15 in line if something happened to that bank to getting paid out. You're effectively, you don't own those funds anymore. The bank says they own the funds once you put them on deposit, and you're merely a creditor. So if they become insolvent, you basically get in line behind all the other creditors. And you're not the first in line. You're not the fifth in line. You're way back in the back of the line. So chances are you'll never get paid out. And if you read your FDIC pamphlet, I may have discussed this in prior videos, but each bank branch is supposed to have an FDIC insurance pamphlet in their bank. My experience is that if you go into most banks, they don't have it anywhere out in the lobby. If you ask any of the employees about it, they'll give you a look like a deer in headlights because they have no idea what you're talking about. But it's supposed to be posted. But if you look in the fine print, it says in there that the FDIC has up to 6 years to get you your money back. I don't know about you. I know they're not going to wait 6 years to get their next mortgage payment, but they have up to 6 years to pay you back this money. So it's kind of scary. I think people ought to get their money out of banks while they can. If you have to have because we all have to have some type of a banking or credit union relationship, I think it's better to go with a credit union. And again, it's another way to help starve the beast. I mean, the banks are a big problem, and they're a big reason why this country is in the problems that we have. It's the government, it's the banksters. Starve the beast, take your money out of their system.
Amen. I've got one more question, but before I do, one of the things from a homesteader's perspective is seeds, and that's what I wanted to add is absolutely seeds, because if you don't have access to food, what's the next best thing? The ability to go and grow your own food. And bullets can be traded for food like that, guys. If you don't have the ability to make bread or do whatever, you might be able to be hired as protection. Hey, I'll tell you what, you go watch the road for the next 3 days, and I'll make sure you and your family are fed. How's that? So maybe somebody like myself, who's not exactly more like the military tactical kind of guy, can leverage my money and gain services that way. Or, oh, I need a ditch dug. I'll tell you what, I'll give you X amount of this. And so be thinking along those lines too, because seeds are life. And the other thing about seeds that's interesting, the one thing that, just talking about the qualities of money, seeds have an expiration date. And they are not good forever. They will not germinate after X amount of time. You have to keep them growing and then get the new seeds. But if you get non-GMO, non-hybrid seeds, they will continue to grow on. And that kind of brings me to this. If this is a major collapse, if it's worse than the 20s, and it's happened throughout history several times, this is nothing new, people. But if it was worse than the 20s, and I do believe it will be worse for a lot of reasons, many reasons. First of all, is you've got so many millions and millions of people packed into these city centers, and they don't know how to do anything for themselves except go to the nipple, which is the ATM or whatever, and then they just they only have food for 2 days or whatever. Well, what's going to happen? They don't even have a way to get food. There's no farms there. They don't know how to grow things. And so, but at least in the 20s, the country was still 80% farmland. Most people were farmers. So I do think that this is going to be a far cry. But, having the knowledge of history and knowing that if this thing comes down, it could come down for a long time. It could be down for years. Now, that said, understanding money and understanding wealth, would there be ways, and this is kind of be a mind-bending, question, but would there be ways to actually grow real wealth in a down-grid society?
Yeah, tomatoes. We're talking about seeds here. And by the way, I wholeheartedly agree with you. If you're a prepper, if you're a homesteader, you're already doing this thing with the seeds in your grow. That's like the definition 101 of homesteader is you're self-sufficient, right? Or at least you're trending in that direction. As a prepper, I certainly didn't think much about growing a garden before I started this whole thing, but I did go out and I bought my non-GMO seeds and I put them up, and I did start a garden.
Did you get the tube? I started out with a tube of seeds. Yeah.
Heck yeah. So that to me, but in addition to that, we got to start looking at ways, and you hammered on this already. We got to start looking at ways as individuals that we can become valuable to other people. Mm-hmm. I know that what I do for a living now is not going to have any value in that post-apocalyptic or that post-catastrophic society. Nobody's going to care. The accountant isn't going to have much value, or the person that engraves jewelry is not going to have much value. We got to have other skills, and certainly you're developing skills through your homesteading. I got to learn so much more about that stuff. I'm trying to learn how to weld. I want to learn about gardening and permaculture. We talked to a permaculture prepper about that. I need to learn more about security.
Contingency preps.
Ditch diggers are going to be a dime a dozen, right? But we're not going to be able to survive on our own. We're going to need other people, other like-minded people, and we're going to naturally, I think, group up. But I think there's so many of us that feel like, we're going to just stumble into a camp full of people and they're going to accept us as one of their own and we're going to join their ranks. Man, I don't know about you. If I'm in that group or I'm in charge of that community and somebody comes stumbling in, I'm going to want to know what they have to offer the group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's incumbent upon each of us to develop skills that are going to be valuable to other people, not just to ourselves, but to other people in a grid down or a SHTF situation. I don't know what this is going to look like. We've all seen plenty of TV shows and movies and read the books, and none of us know exactly what it's going to look like. But I think it's very important because you're right. Back in the Great Depression, we were largely an agrarian society still. And we didn't have the government handouts. The government handouts came as a result of the Great Depression.
Yep.
So we had a pretty tough society that knew how to take care of themselves and grow food and live off the land. We don't have that anymore. In fact, we have 100 million people, give or take, that are getting checks every single month in one way, shape, form, or another from Uncle Sam, i.e. the taxpayers. We got nearly 50 million people. We got nearly 50 million people that are getting food stamps. So not only can these people, they don't know how to produce their own food, they can't even earn enough cash to buy their own food. And I'm not putting those people down. There's a lot of people that are down on their luck and they need the help. I get it. But it's still scary when you think of 50 million people that literally, if the grid shuts down tomorrow, they have no way to fend for themselves. So they're going to come looking for your stuff or my stuff.
So I'm going to need to find some good security types and get a tiller, because we've been doing it by hand, and then get a lot of tomatoes in the ground.
Yeah, listen, I read an article not too long ago where a guy talked about this very thing. He talked about a tomato or a tomato plant as a means of wealth, and he said there's no other way to get 1,000 times back on your money. But if you have this one seed, you can grow enough tomatoes and then get enough seeds from them and grow that many more tomatoes, and you can barter, you can sell. And he just used a tomato as an example or a metaphor, but I kind of opened my eyes and said, wow, I never thought about it in those terms before. And we're really going to have to change our thinking and really just I think the whole paradigm of thought is going to have to be flipped on its head. We're going to be so far off of Caitlyn Jenner and watching whatever's on the boob tube. Like, who's going to care about who's in the World Series after something like that? Yet the world seems to be captivated by, the Super Bowl now. 100 million people watched the Super Bowl last year, and it was the biggest deal. Everyone was so transfixed on that, and what's on the commercials. Who's going to really give a damn about any of that the minute the lights go off?
Amen. And I find myself becoming less and less entranced with media and what's going on. As a matter of fact, it kind of disgusts me. I'm more of a traditional kind of family guy. And the stuff that they put on TV, just even regular public TV, I'm not even talking about cable today, is just amazing. When you consider when you were a little kid, if somebody came out with a bra on, it was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And now it's like, Katie, bar the door and cover the kid's eyes just to get through a regular old sitcom.
It's disgusting, the topics that they're talking about. I remember growing up, I grew up in the 80s, so I was watching
Max
Cosby Show.
Max Headroom. Max Headroom.
Right. I was watching The Cosby Show, Growing Pains. That's considered Leave It to Beaver now. And literally the stuff that we're watching now, it's like some sort of weird softcore porn, the stuff that they bring up on there. I kind of look over at my kids and think, but I don't watch TV anymore. And I know they don't really watch a whole lot either. But even some of the Disney movies, the innuendo in there and stuff, it's just ridiculous. It really shows you go back just 60 years ago when Leave It to Beaver was on, or Mr. Egg, or Dennis the Menace. Really, when you just see how society is kind of transformed, and I don't think we did it on our own. I think it's been a concerted agenda to A, dumb down the population, B, take away any morals or strip society from God or strip God from society. It's been this constant drip of an agenda. It's got us to this point now, and yet we sit around and go, we don't know how this happened. I mean, I think it's pretty plain when you take a step back and look at it.
And it is very concerning to me, too, specifically because, I guess, I think that you mentioned something the other day that I found very interesting, and that we were just chatting it up, and it was like, I was kind of expressing that sometimes I'm really concerned that people will think I'm a weirdo or whatever because I store food or I store this or store that, or I think that there's going to be some kind of a crisis coming. And you were like, oh, I am so far past that. It is so far gone in your world, and you just, I don't care. And the thing is that I think that as a society we've gone so far down that to come back without something like an actual revolution or just so much bloodshed or craziness is almost going to be impossible. I pray that's not the case, but I don't think that society will go back to an even somewhat okay morality level where sanity rules, without a lot of garbage.
It's like there has to be a Sodom and Gomorrah moment,
I hope that is not the case, but it's what we seem to have been running towards with both hands open.
Yeah, I think at least my sense is there's still a lot of good people out there. There really are. I mean, I think human beings, there's just so many good people, and there's so much good in the world. Yet there's this cancer in society, and cancer grows, man. It's got a voracious appetite. It feeds on the good cells and kills them off and eats them up. And there's this cancer that's been growing. I don't even want to say it's been growing. It's been uncapped. I mean, society is feeding it. The agenda is feeding this cancer, so it's now in hyper growth mode. And I don't even know that a revolution is going to save us at this point. I really don't. I don't know what's going to. I guess I'm kind of trying to get back, and I'm trying to retreat into my own little hole. I just want to create my own little bubble, and I know that's not even reality. I know that I can't just put myself in a bubble and be safe from what's going to go on around me. But I do believe that on the other side of this, whatever this is going to be, on the other side of this, there's going to be great opportunity to hopefully build a new society or rebuild the society that we had. Because we really, if you think about it, this country was an experiment. There's no other country in the world, in the history of the world that I'm aware of, that's ever embarked on this society where they were going to empower the common person to govern itself. And so the blueprint's been written, and I think it's a pretty perfect document, the Constitution of the United States. It's pretty perfect blueprint when you think about it. We've just gotten away from it. We need to get back to it. We don't need to rewrite it. We don't need to start from scratch. I think it's a pretty perfect document. We just need to get back to it. And it's very simplistic when you read it. It's not like there's a whole lot of gotchas in there. It's not like a team of Philadelphia attorneys wrote it, and you need another team of New York attorneys to decipher it for you and translate it. It's pretty simple.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more. And I would love to keep going, but we're already pretty long. And, geez, I think we've been going for, something like 40 minutes. I don't know. But anyway, I from my part in this conversation, thank you. I every time I chat with you, and I mean this sincerely, every time I chat with you, I learn something new. And I'm challenged a little bit more to try a little bit harder, dig in a little bit deeper, reach out to some people that may need reaching out to, throw the line out to say, hey, let's build community together, because literally almost every day, every other day, we're meeting new people that are of like mind and are not crazy people and want to go, all right, I'm with you. Now what? And so I don't know where that leads, but maybe we're supposed to just keep talking and do what we're doing, and hopefully people are blessed by it, because I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I hope you are, and they are too.
Yeah, no. I think the comments that we've been getting have been super encouraging. One of the things I get a little discouraged about is so many of the great people that I'm meeting, and I know you're meeting through this medium, through YouTube, is that they're not in our backyard per se. So, and that's a little discouraging from the standpoint. I'm meeting so many great people. I wish you lived next door to me or down the street, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I am meeting people in my neck of the woods too, and I think I don't know what the answer is. I know what some of the problems are, but I feel like I'm being called, and I know you do too through our conversations. We're being called to do something.
Yep.
Whether that's learn new skills, become a homesteader, prep, and put some supplies back, I feel like I'm being pushed or pulled or what have you to do these things. And the other thing that you and I, through conversation, what brought us to this point of doing this Homestead Nation, is that we felt like we were being called to do the next thing. And I think this is it. So, and we don't know what's going to come out of this, but certainly we need the people watching this to tell us what they want to come out of it, and we'll see what the next thing is that comes out of this.
That's an excellent segue. Here's the reality, people. We all know and we all feel what's coming down the road, and so we need to be in community together. I need your skill set, and you need some of mine, and Tommy needs some of yours, and we all need to be able to work together in this. We need to start building community. And I understand that the self-sufficiency world has traditionally been, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to get and do my own thing, and I'll just leave me alone. Because you might blah, blah, blah. Just take a deep breath. Nobody wants to take your stuff yet. It hasn't happened. Right now is the time where we need to build together. So with that said, please do reach out to us. If you feel like there's something important that you need to chat with us about, private message us. Put a comment down there. Say, I know this. I'd like to hear more on this topic. Or I know this person who's really good at this skill. You should reach out to them. We need this feedback if we're going to actually grow this forum.
Yeah, and please hit the share button. Share it on your social media page.
Amen.
We need more people brought into this thing. I mean, what we're trying to do, we know that the people that are watching this, at least initially, think like we do. We need to also reach people that have that feeling. They know something isn't right, and there's a lot of them out there. I talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
But they're not even aware that this world exists, that this whole homesteading or prepping movement even exists. We need to bring them into the fold as well. You may want to cut this out, Brad, I don't know, but I was at a local prepper meeting several months ago, and I sat next to a guy. We went through a MAG discussion, a mutual assistance group discussion, where the leader of the group actually brought out handouts, and we had to fill out, kind of what we thought the best way of going about forming a mutual assistance group was, and it basically put some other questions in there, how you would react to situations. And the guy sitting next to me, he had to be 55 or 60 years old. But one of the scenarios was you're in your bug out location with your spouse or family, and 12 orphans show up to your door. What do? And his immediate response was execute them. Right. So I tell you this for a few reasons. Just because we have some things in common doesn't mean I want to sit next to you for dinner. I certainly didn't want to sit next to this guy. I understand the thought process behind I got to protect me and mine, but I certainly hope I'm never put in a situation, or I don't live in a world where the first thought that comes across my mind when 12 orphans come to my door looking for help is I need to execute them. I guess my point is, and I'm not sure what my point is anymore, other than the fact that I shared that story. We need to bring other people into the conversation. And there's certainly enough people that are here in this group now that I may not want anything to do with them.
And that's fine. And that's actually one of the big points of what we're trying to do with building the community. Find your level of person that you can handle, because I couldn't handle somebody like that. No way. Hey, I understand the mentality, and I'm sure we'll get comments on, oh, you'll be the first to die. Okay, so be it. Whatever. Feast on my fat flesh. I'm still not going to shoot orphans, you bastards. Anyway, what kind of douchebag would shoot orphans? There's always a way that you can figure something out if you just slow down and assess the problem. You may need to send them packing with a bunch of food. Say, this is where you're going. Maybe you don't need to take them there. You don't need to shoot them. Dear God in heaven. But my point is this, is that you'll find your level of people that you're comfortable dealing with, and then deal with them. Those people, let them go ahead. And you know what? And I'm glad to help you find other like-minded people. Through this forum, these people that are hyper, whatever you want to call them, you'll find other hyper, whatever you want to call them people. Good. Do that. But just get engaged. Just please get engaged.